Bland,
I bother him. He might be looking.
Bland,
Yeah, I'm here.
okay, Bland, can you just count to three?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
And you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, we good.
We are resuming this hearing. This continues to be a hearing of the Committee of the Whole on the mayor's proposed budget for next fiscal year. We are turning now to the Public Charter School Board. I will note for the record the time is 4:42 in the afternoon. We have approximately 20 public witnesses before we turn to the agency itself. I'm going to call in two groups, I think. The first would be Dominique Foster, teacher with Friendship Public Charter School. Dallas Minor, student at Friendship Public Charter School. Simon Rodberg, executive director, Lee Montessori Public Charter School. Ashley High, Chief Finance and Operations Officer, Ingenuity Prep Public Charter School. Brian Nielsen, Chief Financial Officer, Latin American Montessori Bilingual Public Charter School. Haley Wiggins, Executive Director of the Family Place PCS. Ksenia Chacan Flores, student at the Family Place. Allison Kokoros, CEO of Carlos Rosario International Public Charter School. Felipe Rafael Sanchez, digital literacy tutor at Carlos Rosario International Public Charter School. Fidel Yusaka, student at Carlos Rosario International School. And Leicester Johnson, CEO of Academy of Hope Public Charter School. And I'm going to stop there. Dominique Foster, you would be first. I'm going to move this a little bit quicker because it's now late. And so, Ms. Foster, are you here?
I am.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Mendelson and members of the committee. My name is Dominique Foster, and I'm a proud preschool teacher at Friendship Blow Pierce in Ward 7. I love my students, my colleagues, and my school, and I truly cannot imagine teaching anywhere else. I want to begin by expressing sincere gratitude for the investments reflected in this year's budget. The 2.7% increase to the uniform per student funding formula is essential. The 3.1% increase to the facilities allotment and the $30.8 million allocated for charter school educator compensation are also deeply appreciated. These investments are not just numbers on a page, they are lifelines for educators like me. For me, increased pay and professional development opportunities like letters training have been game-changing. Friendship continues to invest in me, not only through resources and stipends, but also by trusting my expertise and giving me the autonomy to make meaningful decisions in the classroom. That trust allows me to do my best work for our children. I also want to acknowledge that DC is doing more for its teachers than many other places in this country. I speak regularly with colleagues nationwide, and the support we receive from the mayor, OSSI, and this council stands out. Across DCPS and public charter schools alike, there are dedicated, passionate educators giving their all every day, and our city demonstrates this commitment to us. But we face ongoing challenges, and I have two important requests. First, to address the sense some have of the instability in the charter sector, we must fix the out years of the budget and ensure all public education funding flows through the formula and that the UPSFF keeps up with the rising costs. Additionally, despite the clear investments the mayor is making in schools for the upcoming school year, charter schools are being asked to deliver the same outcomes with far fewer resources. DCPS receives billions for facilities modernizations over the course of the financial plan and $148 million for small capital investments in the 26-27 school year, while charter schools see an increase of $20 million in the facilities allotment. The imbalance is not sustainable, and similar to what Council Member Parker recently pointed out, equity must be the standard rather than exception between DCPS and the charters. Second, as a national leader in early childhood education, we must continue to prioritize our youngest learners. I have taken great pride in serving as an early childhood educator for over 15 years here in the district, and I've seen firsthand the positive impact the support of policymakers such as yourselves have had on the profession. The support of Councilmember Christina Henderson has not gone unnoticed. She has consistently been a strong voice and advocate for early childhood students, families, and educators. For that, I thank you. Just as strong trees grow from strong roots, our children thrive when we invest in them early and consistently. I would like the council to consider how we can deepen the impact of its early childhood investment by more strongly connecting it with other investments in college and career. Our youngest learners are curious, eager, and open to being inspired. We must expose them to the idea of college and better connect them with the professionals in high growth industries. We must help them see what is possible through lifelong learning and hard work and the first moments they enter the classroom. Of course, that also means continued investments in high quality instruction, as well as wraparound supports like dental care, wellness checkups, mental health services, and more. Let's ensure every child, especially those with the greatest needs, has a strong start and every chance to succeed. Thank you for your time and for your unwavering commitment to our city's children.
Well, thank you, Ms. Foster. I'll let you go over a little bit, which I probably shouldn't do. So I'm going to ask subsequent witnesses, please keep an eye on the clock. Everybody's supposed to stay within 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Next is Dallas Minor.
I'm here.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson and members of the council. My name is Dallas Minor. I'm a proud native Washingtonian. I live in Ward 7, and I just graduated from Friendship Collegiate Academy. This fall, I'll be heading to the United States Naval Academy, where I'll study architectural engineering and play Division I football. My mom is my village. She raised me with discipline, love, and strength. She taught me that nothing is handed to you and that you have to go get it. I carry that with me every day. I tried to take some stress off of her because she's trying to raise a man, and that's not easy. But I want her to know that it's working. I would not be here today without her. This journey, this path I'm on, will also not be possible without friendship. At Friendship, my teachers worked hard to not only make sure we learn, but that we found joy in learning. I was never just a number. I was seen, challenged, and supported every step of the way. Starting with Miss Cooper, my engineering teacher, knew that I was interested in architectural engineering. She made sure I got real hands-on experience, reading blueprints, building models, solving problems with both my mind and my hands. I didn't just feel like I was studying engineering. I felt like I was an engineer. Next, Coach Hunter. He led our football program like a college coach would. He built a culture of brotherhood and discipline. He made sure we hit weights, studied film, and did our homework. He reminded us we were scholar athletes with the scholar first. That kind of leadership taught me how to hold myself and my teammates accountable. My school benefited from DC's investment in dual enrollment, and I personally took a course of Morehouse College. I hope you'll continue to invest in early college for students like me. Friendship gave me opportunities, AP classes, dual enrollment, online courses, and a community that believed in me. But more than anything, they helped me believe in myself. The secret to my success is simple. I keep my promise. I do what I have to do before I want to do what I want to do. And even if I'm struggling, I push through because I know you have to struggle to be successful. That mindset came from my mom, and it was enforced every day at Friendship. I'm here today as proof of what's possible when you invest in schools like Friendship. You're not just funding education, you're funding excellence, opportunity, and a future for young people like me. Thank you for having your time.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Simon Rodberg.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson and council members. My name is Simon Rodberg. I'm the Executive Director of Lee Montessori Public Charter School, serving 550 students and growing across 2 campuses in Ward 5 and Ward 8. As we near the end of this school year, I'm proud of where our schools are and excited about where we're headed. We've improved attendance with strong school culture and targeted family support, with average daily attendance of almost 92% this year. In the second year of our literacy initiative, we have achieved in end-of-year testing an average of 150% of median national growth on the national exam we use. We are on track next year for our highest ever enrollment, showing strong family satisfaction. Similarly, we expect over 95% of staff offered contracts to return for next year. While we have a lot of room to grow, we believe we are in a great position to make that growth. The city's continued investments in schools will make that growth possible next year. We appreciate Mayor Bowser's proposed 2.74% increase to the uniform per student funding formula and her proposed investment in charter educator compensation. We are also grateful for the 3.1% increase in the charter facilities allotment for FY26. But I want to share that the facilities allotment covers far less than our actual facilities costs. In Lee Montessori's FY26 budget, rent for our Brooklyn campus and loan payments for our East End campus together cost $670 more per student than the charter facilities allotment provides, and that doesn't include our maintenance, capital improvement, or utilities costs. We are proud to provide great buildings for our children to learn in, but the differential cuts into our ability to provide staff and programming, as we have to use significant amounts of the USPFF to pay for facilities. This gives us deep concern about the proposed pause in facilities allotment increases from FY27 to FY30 and the proposed USPFF cuts. Meanwhile, DCPS is set to receive significant facilities investments, including nearly $2 billion for school modernizations and dedicated annual funding for fixed facility costs. We support improved facilities across the district, including for DCPS. But the disparity in long-term facilities funding places public charter schools at a serious disadvantage, especially when our buildings serve the same public purpose. We urge the Council to protect the facilities allotment increases and ensure all students, regardless of school sector, learn in spaces that are deserving of our children. Thank you for your leadership and partnership in ensuring a high-quality education for all of DC's students.
Thank you, Mr. Rodberg. Ashley High. Brian Nielsen. Mr. Nielsen, you're muted.
Thank you. I was just saying, in the interest of time, you have the written testimony. I will just hit on a couple of highlights from that, as well as a couple of comments on earlier testimony today. I am Brian Nielsen, Chief Financial Officer for Latin American Montessori Bilingual, serving all 8 wards of the city. LAM has the benefit of 20 years of history that has allowed us to build strong foundation financially, facility-wise, academically. We obviously have been concerned, as everybody has, with the changes that have been going on in the economic and political environments. I want to say a huge thank you to DC for the way they've managed coming out of the continuing resolution problems. That saves a number of charter schools. And frankly, as a person who's been personally embarrassed to be an American lately, the way that has been handled, it leaves me proud to be a Washingtonian. It goes without saying that we fully support and appreciate the mayor's proposed education budget and the increases there. We urge the council to accept those. In the current environment, it will not meet all costs that we're facing, but makes things very manageable. Looking to the future, Chairman Mendelson, thank you for your comments earlier relative to the out years on the UPSFF and the facilities. I want to add, in terms of the equitable, it was stated earlier today that the compensation funding is equitable, 5% based upon what the DCPS teachers are getting for fiscal 25 and fiscal 26. Problem is that ignores the contract goes back to fiscal 24. DCPS teachers are looking at a cumulative 9% going into this next year. That is not equitable with 5% going to the charter schools. Facilities, very similarly, I can point to multiple examples. We have a wonderful facility that we love that we moved into just recently. There are other DCPS schools that have received much higher levels of funding. We're left with that facilities allowance, as much as grateful as we are for it, not even covering our full debt service, let alone utilities and other such things. facilities funding is not equitable. And if we're to manage that into the future, as we have been, restoring the future years funding for that is going to be critical. With that, I am on my time. Appreciate your listening. Appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nielsen. Haley Wiggins?
Hello, good afternoon. Chairman Mendelson. Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay.
Yes.
And members of the committee. Thank you. My name is Haley Wiggins. I do want to mention that our student who was next on the list, Yesenia, had a medical emergency and will not be able to make it, which is too bad because it would be nice to hear from her. But I'm the executive director of the Family Place Public Charter School. We work with a dedicated community of low-income adult learners eager to grow through education. Our mission is to help adult learners improve their literacy, language, and workplace skills to secure better jobs and build a brighter future for themselves and their families. Our programs are designed to meet them where they're at and help them move forward with confidence. Our Child Development Associate, or CDA program, certifies students to work with infants, toddlers, preschoolers in various childcare settings, as well as home visiting. This accredited program helps open meaningful careers for our students. We also offer 14 ESL classes, so English classes ranging from beginner to advanced levels, and what we call a Foundations of Literacy program in Spanish for those students who were not able to learn how to read and write in their native language, and that really helps them to gain experience, gain confidence, and to be able to learn English better. And these programs not only help the parents pursue their own educational goals, but it creates a ripple effect of growth and engagement throughout the community. Thank you for your continued support, especially with investing in teacher retention. This year, in FY25, we were able to increase salaries for staff to retain and attract experienced educators. We were able to expand access to adult education. The demand continues to grow. And over the past year, we increased our enrollment by 17% from 193 students to 225 students, reflecting the rising need for our services to more individuals in the city. Also investing in technology. We've been able to provide more technology access and digital literacy to our adult learners, as well as, most exciting for me, facilities expansion. We are expanding our facility. We will open a new building in SY27 because of support from the SOAR grant as well as the facilities allotment. Investing in adult education does not only benefit the individuals enrolled, but especially their children and the broader community. It helps to provide to the economic and social well-being of the city. Additionally, research shows that when parents further their education, their children are more likely to succeed academically. Thank you for your continued commitment to adult education. Please continue prioritizing and expanding investments in education because the benefits extend far beyond the classroom. And with the FY27 budget, obviously we urge you to uphold the increase in UPSF funding as well as the charter allotment to be able to provide stable, predictable funding, at least for next year. And I know there have already been many concerns about the beyond years, and hopefully we can address those appropriately. But I'm also, while we appreciate.
Ms. Wiggins, I'm going to have to cut you off here.
I'm at 3 minutes. I am so sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
And I do have your statement, so thank you for that. I think you said that Ksenia Chekin-Flores is not going to be here. Allison Kokoris?
Right, she is not there.
Yes, hello.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Greetings, Chairman Mendelson, members of the Committee of the Whole and staff. Again, my name is Allison Kokoros, and I serve as the proud Chief Executive Officer of Carlos Rosario International Public Charter School. Today and at next Wednesday's hearing, you will hear from several members of our school community, including Chief Academic Officer Eleni Lawrence, GED instructor Patricia De Ferrari, alumnus and board member Alejandra Barrera, and today, digital literacy tutor Felipe Rafael Sanchez and graduate Fidele Yusaka. Together, their stories speak to the transformative impact of adult education in Washington, D.C. And I'm here today to uplift their stories and ask for your continued investment in adult education. And as you know, for over 50 years, Carlos Rosario has served the district's immigrant adult learners with a comprehensive model of education, career training, and support services. Our students come from over 80 countries, speak more than 30 languages, and live in all 8 wards of the district. Each year, we serve over 2,100 learners who are improving their English, earning their GEDs and their high school diploma, gaining digital literacy, and completing career training programs that lead to employment in high-demand sectors such as healthcare, education, IT, and hospitality. The investment the council made last year in increasing the adult learner weight in the UPSFF allowed us to deepen our support for these students. We hired specialized tutors for learners with learning differences, expanded our bilingual onboarding to accelerate digital literacy and comfort with online learning tools, and grew our data analysis capacity to better understand and address the barriers students face in persisting toward their goals. The results have been clear. Students are progressing in English and high school diploma attainment, earning industry-recognized certifications, and staying enrolled in significantly higher rates. Our programs in just the past 2 years have helped launch the careers of 140 certified nurse aides, 95 bilingual teaching assistants, 113 IT professionals, and 178 credentialed hospitality workers, graduates who are now contributing to the district's economy at places like the Washington Hospital Center, DC Public Schools, and the Ritz-Carlton. So as you consider the fiscal year 26 budget, I respectfully ask that you maintain the mayor's critical investments in public education as you, the chairman, have in the past, and the council always been very consistent in supporting education. And doing this through the increase to the UPSFF, teacher pay increases, and sustained increases in the charter facilities allotment. Our schools really do need predictable funding year over year, and I know that that's been discussed. I also want to just quickly mention that while the mayor's proposed budget is really strong on education and public safety, we're deeply concerned about what it does to the social safety net that also goes hand in hand with the success and outcomes in education. And also we're hearing that there may be some cuts to the adult education and family literacy grants that come through OSSI, and would love to have your support in taking a look at that. So again, thank you for your time and your steadfast commitment to education equity and opportunity in our beloved district.
Thank you, Ms. Kokoros, and it's good to see you again. Felipe Rafael Sanchez. He needs to accept. I'm going to move on. Fidel Yosaka. Is Fidel Yosaka there?
I am here. Sorry, I was connecting still. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Felipe Sanchez. I am a Ward 1 resident as well as a graduate of the Carlos Rosario International School and as current staff member. I'm here to speak about the transformative power of adult education in Washington, D.C. and ask that you continue to invest in adult learners like me. When I arrived in the United States at the age of 12, I felt like a seedling struggling to take root in unfamiliar soil. After working in photography and putting my education on hold, I discovered Carlos Rosario International Public Charter School, a place that would change everything. I completed their bilingual teaching assistant program in January of 2024, a comprehensive course that not only prepared me to work in education, but also helped me rediscover my passion for teaching. Now I work as a digital literacy tutor, supporting students who are often experiencing a computer or virtual learning environment for the first time. The school support didn't stop at job placement. They've enabled me to continue my education, and I'm currently pursuing my Associate in Science in Business Administration at UDC, a degree that will allow me to blend my interest in technology, education, and community support. As a digital literacy tutor, I witnessed transformative moments daily. Yesterday, I helped a restaurant worker create her first email account and look for apartments online. Last week, I guided another student through uploading his resume to Google Drive so he could access it from anywhere. A simple skill that opened doors he didn't know even existed. I work with students navigating computers for the first time, teaching them essential vocabulary like browser and download. We start with basics, using a touchpad on their school-assigned laptops, typing, then climb toward tools that unlock opportunity. Google Workspace for collaboration, digital editing tools such as Canvas for continuing education, and job portals that connect them for better futures. These aren't just technical skills, they're bridges out of isolation. When students master video calls, they can reconnect with distant family. When they learn to research online, they become empowered citizens. According to recent data literacy research, 85% of executives believe digital skills will soon be as vital as basic literacy itself. This city residents are talented individuals, former business owners, skilled tradespeople, devoted parents who simply need someone to translate the digital world into their language at their pace. When we invest in agile education, we don't just teach skills, we nurture entire human ecosystems. We prevent it cutting people off at their roots. We allow dreams to grow, communities to strengthen, and DC to become a more vibrant, inclusive city. Our city's future depends on recognizing the potential in every resident, regardless of their background. Adult education is not an expense. It's our most powerful investment. That is why I'm asking you to maintain the mayor's 2.74% increase to the UPSFF and 3.1% increase to the charter facilities allotment. Thank you for your time and service to our city.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Fidel Usaka.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Fidel Usaka. I am a Ward 7 resident, originally from Togo. So when I arrived in the United States 3 years ago, I had dreams about limited pathways. My father, who had previously taken computer literacy classes at Carlos Rosario, encouraged me to follow his footsteps, which I did. So at Carlos Rosario, I didn't just learn technical skills. I discovered a pathway to the American dream. And I started with digital literacy classes, earning IC3 and CompTIA certifications that became the foundation of my IT career. So the school provided critical support. When I say critical, it was because I had Metro passes, a computer with internet connection, and even had a scholarship to help me pursue my master's degree in cybersecurity. The school's support went way beyond classroom learning. I became at Carlos Rosario an intern, then a part-time instructor, experienced firsthand the transformative power of adult education. As I often say, Carlos Rosario was like a rocket that launched me into the opportunities here in the US. In just 3 years, I've gone from a new DC resident to a cybersecurity professor at Howard Community College. My journey is not complete. I'm planning to pursue a PhD in education, driven by my passion for teaching and the inspiration I received at Carlos Rosario. I want to continue empowering students the way my instructor at Carlos Rosario empowered me by providing not just skills, but hope and opportunity. For many immigrants and adult learners in DC, schools like Carlos Rosario are lifelines. They're not just educational institutions, they're bridges to economic mobility, professional growth, and community integration. In a city as diverse as Washington, D.C., adult education is crucial. It transforms individual lives and strengthens our entire community. The resources invested in adult education create exponential returns. Look at me. In just 3 years, I've become a certified IT professional, a teacher, a contributor to our local economy. And I'm now sitting in my office, which is bigger than my apartment. So imagine the potential of hundreds of students like me. I urge you to continue fully funding adult education in the upcoming budget by maintaining both the mayor's 2.74 increase to the UPSFF and 3.1 increase for the charter facilities allotment. These are not just classes. They are opportunities, and adult learners are the rockets waiting to launch their dreams. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Usaka. And Leicester Johnson. Not here. I believe is not here. I had one question for Mr. Rodberg. I did not understand one thing. This is really small, but Mr. Rodberg, are you here?
Yes, Chairman.
in your statement, the second paragraph, in our second year, we have achieved in end-of-year testing an average of 150% of median growth on the national exam we use. What does that mean?
So we use an exam called iReady that many other schools use to test students in reading and math. They publish there's various ways of cutting the data. One of the things that they publish is the median growth for all students. And then there's a graph that shows this is where your school is, what percentage. So, overall, have your students on average achieved the median growth nationally? That is, are they basically growing the same from the beginning of the year to the end of the year in reading? We are at 150%. So on their scale, we are significantly above the national average growth in reading on iReady.
I appreciate that explanation and congratulations on that. I don't have another question, but I did just want to say, I've said this a couple of times today, but it's been a very long hearing. It is a compliment to the mayor that the mayor increased funding for public education through the UPSFF, has held steady funding for out-of-school time, and stood by the 3.1% increase in the facilities allotment for charter schools. However, there are inequities in this budget, as some of the witnesses have pointed out. The fact that the $30.8 million is going to charter sector for educator compensation, while a higher number is going to DCPS for educator compensation, the WTU contract, and that the mayor is proposing that the facilities allotment be frozen, that is not increased in the out years of the financial plan, even though the law and the council repeatedly has said the policy should be otherwise. There are a number of expenses that are outside of the funding formula, which is not equitable to the two sectors. And as an example, some of the facilities costs at DCPS are being shifted to DGS. It's about $20 million, which means that DCPS will have about $20 million more in spending power, but the charter schools aren't seeing that. And we know year after year impact is funded outside of the formula. And the committee has said that that is contrary to equitable approach to equitable funding, and the executive persists in that. So it's very disappointing. And I've also said that I think the way this budget is structured, and I'm not just talking about education, the mayor made choices to increase some agencies this year. She pretty much held steady or increased some aspects of public education, but that means there are a lot of cuts. Next week, we'll have a hearing on OSSI, and OSSI, as I recall, is getting tens of millions of dollars of cuts. And part of these choices are that rather than actually right-sizing the budget this year, as I said, she's increasing some agencies. What she's doing is what I would call a gimmick, which is in the financial plan the next 3 years, showing that the UPSFF will go down, that the facilities allotment will be held steady, that is, it will not increase, and some shifts to one time, like with out-of-school time funding. And all these are to pretend that we're not going to spend that much, but of course it sends us a signal of instability. One could say, well, the council could just fix this, but we actually would have to find money. We'd have to cut something in order to find money in these out years. To give you an example, last year with the pay equity fund, what the council was given was a zero budget for pay equity, and we were able to find the $70 million a year for pay equity. And we didn't do it just one time, we did it recurring through the financial plan. That means that the council found $280 million in cuts elsewhere in order to fund pay equity on a recurring basis. This year, the mayor is proposing that pay equity will be funded only for 1 year, zeroed out after next year. And that means that she took the 210 million of the 280 million we found and is repurposing it for other expenditures. It's not worth it to the council to have to cut in order to, for instance, restore the UPSFF I think she's going to restore the UPSFF next year anyway. Public education is too politically charged not to do that. And next year's an election year. But it's just not worth it for the council to make cuts to try to fix these gimmicks in the out years of the financial plan when she'll repurpose some of it and she's going to have to fund some of it. So it's, in my view, not it's not a strong, a well-structured budget. It presents a lot of problems in the out years and did not actually right-size stuff this year. And it's disappointing, and it's behind a lot of the testimony here. And I think that's unfortunate. Not the testimony, but the fact that folks are not happy about these aspects of it. I do not have any other questions. And so with that, I'm going to thank all of the witnesses for your testimony. And you all are excused, and I will call the remaining non-government witnesses. Catherine Prokop, who is Executive Director of Howard University Middle School of Mathematics and Science. Sanjay Mitchell, who's Executive Director of Cesar Chavez Public Charter School for Public Policy. Dr. Jeffrey Grant, CEO of Monument Academy Public Charter School. David Trigot, Washington Urban Debate League. Shalonda Hutchins. And Kathy Riley, convener and facilitator of C4DC. Diana Smith, Chief of Classical Education, Washington Latin Public Charter School. Daniela Anello, who's head of school for DC Bilingual Public Charter School. Kelly Ukun, teacher and president of Charter Union DC Acts, Local 1927. And Erica Beal, so we'll start with Ms. Prokop.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson, and thank
Good
you
afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Again, I'm Catherine Prokop, and I'm the Executive Director of the Howard University Middle School. And I do thank you for this opportunity to testify today. And I want to begin by acknowledging, as you said yourself, that this is a difficult fiscal time for all of us. And we understand that resources are limited and have to be allocated appropriately. And I appreciate your commitment always to student-centered choices, even in the council's period, even in face of economic challenges. We know firsthand how hard it is to balance the budget while protecting what matters most, and that's our students and our educators. We've done some deliberate things here at our school as well to adapt to the current financial environment, freezing hiring on non-essential positions, developing different creative coverage schedules so that we don't have to use substitutes, renegotiating contracts, the thing, it goes on. And these actions have helped us to remain stable, but they're not without some trade-offs. Again, like my colleagues and other people who have testified, we're grateful to the mayor for the 2.74% increase in UPSFF and the 3.1% increase in the facilities allotment, in addition to the $30.8 million to support charter educator compensation. But I also expressed concern, as you did yourself, about the sustainability of compensation parity between the charter sector and DCPS. And while we're doing everything to maintain fair and competitive pay for our teachers, DCPS is slated to receive a lot more through 2029 to support their educators. Public charter schools don't have access to similar dedicated funding streams, and that disparity creates serious long-term challenges. And we don't want to fall behind, we want to keep pace. Equity means stability and opportunity for educators in both sectors. And I want to echo the other concern about the proposed cuts to the FY27 budget that specifically unfairly impact the charter sector. Those cuts include reduction in the per pupil allotment and a freeze in the facilities increase. I highlight again the inequity in this proposed budget because, again, DCPS will receive a financial support to offset this for them, and we don't get that. And the increase in the educator funding promised in FY27 will make it difficult for us to provide equitable teacher compensation. Thank you, Deputy. I want to thank Mayor Kind for his collaboration with us, and his candor and willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue. And I want to thank the council for supporting some initiatives like high impact tutoring that was great for our school because it did help our students achieve show some real great academic gains. Again, thank you for the opportunity to testify and for your commitment to the students in the District of Columbia.
Thank you, Ms. Procope. Sanjay Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson and members of the committee on the whole. Given the time, I'm going to do what my mentor always recommended: be brief, be brilliant, and be gone. So my name is Sanjay Mitchell. I'm the Executive Director of Cesar Chavez Public Charter School for Public Policy in Ward 7. I'm also a proud resident of Ward 7. Chavez School serves over 360 students in grades 6 through 12. The majority are Black and Brown, 3/4 are at risk, and many face learning challenges. I share this not just as data, but to ground our support for the mayor's fiscal year 26 educational investments and to raise significant concerns about the forecast for fiscal year 27 and beyond, which I hope, and from what I'm hearing, the council will address before it's too late. We appreciate the proposed 2.74% increase as well as a 3.1% increase in the facilities and the one-time 30.8 million for educator compensation. These investments enable us to retain high-quality teachers, enhance academic and enrichment programmings, and maintain safe and dignified learning environments. At Chavez, these resources have real impact. We're seeing promising growth among our middle and high school students, indicated through our MAP assessment. Our high school is a top performer in Ward 7. 25% of our graduates earn an average of 12 college credits when they leave our spaces to go into post-secondary world. And 30% of our students participate in dual enrollment, and our scholars are earning cybersecurity certifications and also exposure to college thanks to our partnership with OSSI. This progress isn't accidental. It's the result of targeted, mission-driven investment in our students, and investment in the future of our city. However, I'll be remiss in not living up to our founder's legacy and our calling if I did not echo my concerns and my colleagues' concerns about the one-time increase in the facilities allotment, the educator compensation funding, and the continued need for our funding parity in future budgeting years. Again, similar concerns as all my colleagues with the 3.1% allotment and the freezing of that funding from fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 30, while DCPS receives similar funding. And again, if we want to continue to champion our scholars' leadership both locally and nationally, we cannot be asked to do more with fewer resources than our DCPS colleagues. A rising tide lifts all boats. But we must ask, if the funding disparity only raises some boats, what message does this send to those invested in education whose boats are flat or sinking? Let's be clear, our scholars are no different than their DCPS peers. Inequity is not lost on them. Yesterday, I attended a budget briefing with the DME. An 8th grader entered my office. Like many 13-year-olds, quizzically looked at the screen, asked questions based on what he heard from the speakers, and again noted that and indicated that the funding is not the same for him and his neighbors who attend the school a mile away from our campus. So again, thank you. We're proud of our partnership with OSSI, with PCSB, with DME, and also proud of your support, Chairman Mendelson, as well as the support of the remaining members on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Dr. Jeffrey Grant.
Greetings, Chairman Mendelson and all members of the council. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Grant, CEO of Monument Academy Public Charter School, the only residential public middle school in our nation's capital. We are located in Ward 7, yet we serve 131 5th through 8th grade scholars from 6 of the city's 8 wards, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I join you today to share the story of our scholars and their families as they search for resources that will allow them to thrive, not merely survive. By providing our families with a safe and secure environment that addresses the most basic needs that have previously gone unmet, Monument allows our scholars to read, write, and calculate while healing simultaneously. As a 3-decade-plus educator and school leader, I've faced a myriad of challenges that require strategies and practices that were outside the norm of a traditional school calendar and daily schedule. Fortunately, a model that allows scholars to receive robust, wraparound services is being implemented within Monument Academy. Our school's mission is to enroll scholars who may be in or at risk of entering the child welfare system. Within this framework, working within this framework requires additional resources for both the scholars and their families to ensure that the efforts and gains are maintained as the scholars travel back and forth between school and home. With the relentless support of our staff members, our scholars have been working diligently to overcome traumas that were not of their choosing. By focusing on trauma-informed education, our teachers, counselors, student life advisors, and other staff members facilitate research-proven programming designed by experts who recognize the deficits and additional needs of those in too often overlooked communities. In addition, our school pours into the staff members exposed to the traumas by providing social emotional services and support for them as well. Monument Academy must continue to utilize these highly effective resources and practices to ensure we save lives. Our school is extremely grateful for the city's continued acknowledgement of the need for these additional resources, and we empathize with the city's decision makers as all of us navigate the current landscape. However, we must continue the growth our scholars have been experiencing by approving the mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. The proposed funding provides additional time on task for reading and math. It also supports the extended day programming that our families are unable to finance on their own. Also, the additional funds will ensure equitable funding for this year for our dedicated academic team, allowing us to continue the robust positive relationships between our teachers and scholars. Lastly, I even appreciate the mayor providing the 3.1% facilities allotment for this year. However, the proposed future pauses will negatively impact our scholars who learn and live in Monument Academy, which for many of them is the one safe, constant roof over their heads. Thus, it is imperative that you recognize the need for all public schools to receive equitable financial support, for we serve children from the same city, Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. David Trudeau. Shalonda Hutchins. Kathy Riley. Diana Smith. Daniela Arnello.
Hello.
DC Bilingual, please proceed.
Hi. Thank you so much, Chairman Mendelson and members of the council. My name is Daniela Arnello, and I'm the head of school at DC Bilingual Public Charter School. DC Bilingual is a 2024 National Blue Ribbon School and the highest performing elementary charter in Washington, D.C. In addition to leading DC Bilingual, I am also a DCPS parent. My two children attended DC Bilingual from preschool through grade 5 and are now thriving in DCPS middle and high school. I bring this conversation both from the perspective of a school leader and a DC public school parent. At DC Bilingual, we are more than a school. We're a family. Our teachers and staff know each child by name and take the time to support their academic, social, and emotional growth. We create joyful, engaging spaces where students learn to grow and thrive in 2 languages. Supporting the whole child also means supporting their health and well-being. We proudly operate a scratch kitchen, preparing fresh, healthy meals for all of our students and all of our staff every single day. DC Bilingual is also deeply committed to helping to strengthen public education citywide. We just started an Escuelita initiative where we bring cross-sector school educator teams from both DCPS and public charter schools to observe instruction, plan collaboratively, and take new ideas back to their own schools. This work fosters shared learning and citywide improvement, exactly the kind of partnership we need to ensure that all DC students benefit from excellent schools. To sustain this work and excellence happening in all of our classrooms every day, we need equitable and predictable funding. I'd like to highlight 3 key points. First, support for the UPSFF increase. It must be sustainable. We appreciate the proposed 2.74% increase to the uniform per student funding formula. This investment allows us to retain strong educators, offer enrichment programs, and provide the individualized supports our students need to succeed. However, in addition, if the additional $30.8 million for charter teacher pay is provided as one-time funding outside of the formula, it creates instability. Without sustainable pay structures funded through the UPSFF, we're asking DC Bilingual and other charter schools to do more with less, which jeopardizes long-term excellence. Second, equitable access to facilities. Our students are achieving at the highest levels when they learn in safe, welcoming, beautiful, and inspiring learning environments. Yet public charter schools continue to face inequities in access to public facilities and capital funding. We urge the council to prioritize equitable facilities access so that all DC students in every single school have environments that they need to thrive. Please come and see DC Bilingual School environment for yourself. It is absolutely beautiful. And lastly, the importance of predictable funding for growing schools. DC Bilingual is a growing school. Each year, we welcome new students and expand their programs. Predictable, stable funding is critical for us to plan ahead, hire and retain strong teachers, and ensure that every child's needs are met. Without this predictability, growing schools face barriers to maintaining consistency and quality for all students and families. In closing, DC Bilingual is living proof that with the right investments, joyful, high-quality public education is possible citywide. We are proud to be leading not only for our own students, but also supporting other schools across DC through the Escuelita program. We urge the council to continue prioritizing sustainable and equitable funding so that all DC students in every single ward and every single school can thrive. Thank you for your leadership and for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anello. Kelly Ukun.
Good afternoon, Chairman Middleton and DC Council members. My name is Kelly Ukun, and I am a teacher, former Empower Ed Fellow, and currently serve as president of DC Alliance of Charter School Teachers and Staff, the local union representing now 4 DC public charter schools. I'm here today on behalf of our members to speak about the funding and to urge the body to go beyond temporary solutions towards real sustainable equity for charter educators. The targeted compensation funds are just not enough. I'm not a budget expert, and I'm still trying to figure out how funding works in the district when it comes to education, but it doesn't take an expert to see that this year's funding approach falls short of what's fair, and it does a disservice to the thousands of students attending public charter schools across the district. The fiscal year 25 budget does set aside the $30.8 million for charter schools to increase the pay. Meanwhile, DCPS is receiving those matching funds and additional funds over $170 million targeted towards pay, which does not include their additional fixed cost offsets and facility support in subsequent years. That's a staggering gap, and this kind of imbalance is especially hard to justify when charter schools are serving nearly half of DC's public school students. Another concern is the limited language within the assurance process, which is non-binding, beyond certification, and has no explicit requirements, only that charter LEAs simply need to certify their intents to use the money for compensation without any long-term accountability or enforcement mechanism. Our concern is that many charter schools may still default to temporary stipends or one-time bonuses, which don't solve the deeper issue of undercompensation. Our position is clear. The most effective way to guarantee transparency and accountability is through collective bargaining. And DCAC's eligible members have now surpassed over 700 teachers and staff. We are still growing, and we are seeking guidance about the potential right to bargain with you ourselves. We also want to make recommendations how public funds can be protected from being used for union busting through transparent reporting and collective bargaining expenditures. Public dollars should support students, not be diverted toward anti-union activity that silences educators' voices. Last, every school must secure expenses to stay open and safe. Charter schools are excluded from the fixed cost offsets in 27 and are expected to cover 100% of these costs themselves from the same per pupil funding that also needs to pay for teachers, instructional materials, support staff, and if I understand the budget correctly, charters are being stretched thinner. Every dollar spent on building upkeep is a dollar not spent on educator pay or student support. This is a structural inequity that directly impacts the charter students and staff, and it must be addressed. And we urgently seek your support in creating more equitable solutions for charter school funding. The summary of our final recommendations are found in my statement, and please bear with me as I navigate in writing to you formally on behalf of our unionized members. I look forward to building a relationship with you all and appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last, Erica Beal. Well, she is not here. Give me just a second. I do not have any questions from any of you. I do appreciate your testimony. I think all of you except Ms. Anello, I had copies of your statement. And Ms. Anello, if you could submit, that would be great. Again, thank you for your testimony. I'm going to turn, you're all excused, and I'm going to turn now to Dr. Michelle Walker Davis, as Executive Director of the Public Charter School Board. Did we make you wait long enough since it's 5:38 in the afternoon?
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson and staff and members of the Committee of the Whole. Thank you for the opportunity to testify at today's fiscal year 2026 budget oversight hearing. I'm Dr. Michelle Walker Davis, Executive Director of the DC Public Charter School Board, and I'm joined by my colleague, Will Henderson, who is our Chief Operating Officer. I want to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to Mayor Bowser and this council for your continued leadership, advocacy, and commitment to public education, even amid a challenging fiscal environment. I especially thank the mayor for once again proposing an increase to the Uniform Per Student Funding Formula, or UPSFF, and this council for maintaining your strong support for public charter schools, which educate nearly half of all public students in the district. This investment is critical. Any reduction in funding significantly impacts not only school programming, but also the students, teachers, and leaders who rely on these resources. Each public charter school functions as its own local education agency, effectively its own school district, responsible for maintaining safe, welcoming facilities, recruiting and developing quality educators, delivering strong academic programming, and providing vital services ranging from supports for multilingual learners, adult learners, students with disabilities, and students with specialized needs, as well as professional development for the dedicated educators that support our diverse learners. At the core of this system is the UPSFF, a formula designed to reflect the foundational resources needed to educate each student. It should remain the cornerstone of funding for schools in the district. This formula promotes equity by providing consistent baseline funding while also delivering additional resources for students with greater needs based on factors such as grade level, special education status, and English language learning, because this city recognizes that these students require more support to thrive. It is imperative that all funding, including investments to increase teacher compensation, flows through the UPSFF. While we are grateful for the $30 million in one-time funding for public charter school teacher pay included in the FY26 budget, it stands in stark contrast to the $240 million allocated to DCPS for the same purpose. One-time funds do not offer the long-term sustainability our educators and schools deserve. We risk creating a fragmented, inequitable funding system when we do not fund through the UPSFF. Funding is a challenge that is especially acute for schools like St. Coletta PCS, which serves nearly 270 students with the most significant needs, those with intellectual disabilities, autism, or multiple disabilities, and requiring intensive special education services. While the council has commendably found some supplemental funding for St. Coletta for the last few years, this approach is neither sustainable nor fair. This budget underfunds St. Coletta by roughly $2.6 million, We urge this body to close this gap this year and move forward to identify a stable funding source to ensure St. Coletta can meet the needs of its students. Stability is critical for these students and their families. Turning to our work as an authorizer, DCPCSB remains deeply committed to academic excellence. Our academic accountability system, Aspire, sets clear, rigorous benchmarks for public charter schools and is designed to drive sustained student achievement across the sector. However, fully implementing Aspire demands strong data infrastructure, transparent public reporting, and meaningful support for schools as they strive to meet the ambitious goals. We are encouraged that this budget includes investments in high-impact tutoring, in literacy and math, extended school year, and teacher training, critical tools for helping schools meet the expectations outlined in Aspire. These investments, paired with consistent academic oversight, are essential to building a transparent and equitable system that ensures all students have access to a quality education. We also take seriously our responsibility for financial oversight. Each year, we publish financial analysis reports, or the FAR, on all public charter LEAs and maintain a public financial monitoring list and a listing of citations of fiscal concern, which was recently added to our financial oversight toolkit. When schools exhibit ongoing financial stress, we issue financial corrective action plans, or FCAPs, to guide them to financial health. We have increased transparency by publishing this information more prominently in the Transparency Hub on our website, which is designed to support both the public and the school's Board of Trustees members in understanding how schools are doing. As part of our oversight responsibilities, DCPCSB also evaluates the organizational effectiveness of public charter schools, not just in delivering academics and being good financial stewards, but in supporting the whole child. Schools are more than classrooms. They are community anchors. They feed hungry students, connect families to healthcare, and offer safe, nurturing environments where students feel supported and seen. In light of this, we were disappointed to see a $2.33 million reduction to the school-based behavioral health program. Our schools consistently report increasing demand for behavioral health supports, and we urge this council to restore and expand investments in this critical area. At the same time, we are encouraged by proposed increases to student-centered programs that help keep young people safe, supported, and engaged. This includes DC School Connect, Safe Passage, out-of-school time grants, the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, and the Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute. These programs are essential for student safety, enrichment, and connection to community, and we applaud the commitment to continuing to prioritize them. As we build a stronger ecosystem of accountability and support, governance is a critical pillar. Quality oversight starts with strong, well-informed leadership on each public charter school's Board of Trustees. That's why we support the proposed legislation to strengthen board governance by requiring mandatory training for trustees. With more than 700 dedicated volunteers serving on public charter school boards, this is a meaningful step toward ensuring strong, informed leadership across the sector. We are actively exploring cost-effective solutions to deliver this training, including the potential use of existing infrastructure, such as OSSI's learning management system, to support content delivery and participation tracking. However, given current budget constraints, we respectfully ask the Council to consider funding this initiative beginning in FY27. This phased approach would allow us to begin implementing using available tools while ensuring long-term viability through future investments. It is important to note that DCPCSB operates differently from most agencies. Our funding comes from an administrative fee paid by each public charter school, not from an annual appropriations line. As such, any reduction to our budget is effectively a reduction to direct and indirect services to public charter schools. Like the schools we oversee, we must maintain reserves to manage emergencies and non-routine expenses, such as supporting families during school closures or covering costs not addressed in the current budget. These reserves are essential to our ability to respond quickly and responsibly to the needs of the sector. This year, we respectfully urge the council to identify a permanent funding solution for lead testing in public charter schools, which is mandated by law. While we appreciate the one-time funding provided last year, we continue to face uncertainty each budget cycle. In years when funding is not available, DCPS has had to step in using our special revenue funding beyond our annual budget authority to cover the cost of water testing and filter replacements, even though this is a citywide infrastructure responsibility. Our special revenue fund is a non-lapsing fund by design. It is not an indicator of surplus. Rather, it is our primary tool for risk management, long-term planning, and emergency response, and requires us to be careful fiscal stewards of our resources. To be clear, this is not the moment to pull back resources from our public charter schools. Our students need more, not less. It's time to give them the stable, equitable resources they need to continue delivering for the more than 48,000 students they serve. Through a strong UPSFF, thoughtful investments in teacher compensation, and permanent solutions for lead testing in schools like St. Coletta, we can ensure our public education system is one of opportunity, innovation, and equity for every student. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis. I do have a few questions. Let's see. You ended talking about lead pipe testing. Is there money in this budget for lead pipe testing, or are you supposed to absorb that?
Thank you, Chairman. There is not dedicated resources in any other
I didn't ask
agency.
you that, if there were dedicated resources. We've put money in each year on a one-time basis. Is there money in did the mayor put money in?
No,
So there's zero in the budget for that.
not that I am aware of that there is funding in any other agency.
And roughly how much is it?
I'll ask our.
This year, thanks for the question, Chairperson. This year, the cost for lead funding will be right around $1 million for our public charter schools.
Can you give a more precise number or get back to us with a more precise number?
Yes, I can certainly give a more precise number. All of the reimbursement, all the services have not been provided yet over the course of the school year, so we're still projecting out because the testing continues through the end of the school year. But we can get a more precise number of what's been spent to date, but we're anticipating just under $1 million. And
okay. So you'll get back to us on the number. As you know, the mayor's proposed budget and financial plan pauses the facilities allotment. Does that have any fiscal impact on your budget?
Thank you, Chairman. It does not have a fiscal impact on PCSB's budget. I think you've heard significant testimony today about the implications it will have on individual charter schools' budgets, and we fully support their request and the need, quite frankly, for continued predictable facilities funding that reflects the increase in cost and inflation of facilities improvements.
Yes, I understand it's destabilizing,
correct,
this approach. And I recall that last year we went through this. It was a little different then. I think then the proposed budget had zero increase. This year, at least, there's an increase for the first year. I want to ask you about your reserves.
Mm-hmm.
My notes here say that the fund balance for your reserves is currently $3.57 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the mayor taking any of that money?
Chairman, currently we did not This current budget does not represent that, but again, this is a non-lapsing fund, so we hope that that will not be the case in the future, but as far as we understand, it is not swept currently.
Your current balance is 3.57. If you don't touch it, going into next year, you have 3.57.
Correct.
How do you use that fund? Or did you touch on that in your testimony? That's for when Eagle Academy suddenly closes, you can go to that fund to cover some expenses.
Correct. So it is, as I mentioned, a non-lapsing fund. We have been very strategic in how we manage our resources such that we can plan for when there are closures. Obviously, we have a robust academic accountability system, and that will inform when schools are closed. But as you know, schools can make the decision to relinquish their charter. Sometimes there are extraordinary circumstances that might cause a school to close. And so we want to be able to be prepared not only to manage those closure efforts, but primarily to support families in finding alternative placements. So that is one big place where we will use those funds. We also are looking at what it will take to fully implement Aspire and any of our oversight responsibilities, and may use our reserves for those types of things that are planned over time.
Give me just a second. When we sent you performance oversight questions, usually we ask for any special purpose funds. Your reserve fund would be that. And we asked for beginning and closing balances for several years. Did we ask that this year?
I do not recall if we did, but I'm sure we provided the answer if you did ask that. I'm not sure if
Well,
we
the
did.
question is, should I ask you to provide it to us, or should I go look at my notes?
I can have staff look in the meantime as to whether or not that was a question. And just one correction, both of our funds are special purpose revenue funds. Our actual quote unquote budget, because we receive an admin fee from our schools, as well as what you are calling fund balance.
So with regard to your reserve, that's what I'm interested in here. If you already gave it to us, let us know. Otherwise, if you could give us the opening closing balance for, let's say, the last 10 years, that's too long. 2019?
I will follow up on that, yes. One thing I wanted to add, Chairman, we did cover in times when we have not had dedicated funding for lead testing, that is another area where we have dipped into those reserves to cover that lead testing, which hence my testimony for a more stable and permanent solution to that.
Yes. And that lead testing has to be done every year, right?
It does, yes.
Does seem to me if impact can be paid outside the UPSFF, the lead testing could be paid outside the UPSFF. It's required every year. You don't have to answer. I'm just thinking out loud. It's unique to the charter sector.
Well, technically, Chairman, it is not unique to the charter sector, but DCPS's lead testing is paid through DGS.
Well, DCPS teacher salaries are not unique to the sector. I'm thinking of impact. The charters received their fourth quarter payments, right?
They did not receive their, oh yes, sorry, fourth. Yes, I thought you said first. Yes, that is correct. They did.
The several three charter schools have decided to relinquish their charters?
Two charter schools have relinquished their charters this year. That is iDream PCS and Hope Community PCS.
Does that affect the fourth quarter payment? Like they don't need all of it?
I will let our CO answer.
Thanks for the question. No, they are still operating school this school year, and they are budgeted. Their audited enrollment still is needed. Those funds for their audited enrollment is still needed to serve their students this school year.
Your testimony touched on St. Coletta's. My question is, what can be done to create a more sustainable funding mechanism? But I think your answer was in your testimony, which is that the mayor should be funding it.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We offered in past testimony and today the desire for stable funding. You had conversation with the deputy mayor about the adequacy study, and I think you've heard previously that there was a recommendation for either an additional weight to the funding formula or as in an add-on weight or a dedicated weight for a special education school. And we would support either of those solutions because they would produce the permanent and predictable funding that St. Coletta would need.
The Department of Behavioral Health budget has a $2.3 million cut to school-based behavioral health. Are you seeing any impact on that? I mean, we've been struggling with, there just have not been enough medical health providers. And so if there aren't the providers, is it really a cut in the budget or is it just budgeting what is actually going to be available? That wasn't the question. The question is, do you see any impact that the cut will have?
I would say that we currently have challenges with the increased mental health needs within our schools. And you are right that there is currently a struggle in getting the services to match the level of need. I understand that there would only be increasing demand. I'm not fully knowledgeable of what that cut represents in terms of if it is reacting to unfilled positions. But what I would say, and I think you've heard directly from our LEAs, is that it will pose a problem if we're not able to meet the needs of our students. And those are only increasing to my understanding.
I have a few more questions, but we've been joined by Councilmember Christina Henderson. Councilmember Henderson, I had 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so good evening, Dr. Walker Davis.
Good evening.
Just sort of following up from the conversation about the school-based behavioral health, we had our part one of our budget hearing for the Department of Behavioral Health today, where we had some folks who testified about that. And so we'll do part two with Director Bazaran on Monday. Chairman, if you want to tune in for that part, although I'm sure you have your own hearing. I want to just follow up on something from earlier about the lead testing in the water. I have the unique privilege, I guess, of having worked on that when I was a staffer at the council. And I know it predates both you, Dr. Walker Davis, as well as Mr. Henderson. But originally we wanted, the council, DC government, wanted to pay for the lead testing and have DGS do it. But charter schools didn't want to allow DGS into the building. So that is how we got into this, let me give you money and then you do it, as opposed to it being done centrally. But, should anyone want to revisit that relationship, I'm certain that we can do that because I agree with you that this is a citywide function, which is why we wanted the citywide Department of General Services to do it. But that was that tension that we had that number of years ago, and this was the compromise on that front. The same in terms of the St. Coletta's funding, which has been supplemental for all of these years, and sort of some of the resistance to setting up the separate weight and following the adequacy study, which for years has said that St. Coletta's needed additional funding. It's disappointing that we still haven't done that yet, given what they do in terms of serving students who are in need of a unique classroom environment. Now to ask a couple of budget related questions because the chairman kind of asked on some of these already. You touched a little bit on the two charter schools who recently relinquished their charters. Both of them did so after the My School DC results were announced in March. I think according to the budget books, iDream Public Charter School had a proposed enrollment of 128 and Hope Community had a proposed enrollment of 230. So we're talking about roughly 360 students or so who needed to find a new school home for the 25-26 school year. How is PCSB helping in terms of processing where those new students can go after these charters were relinquished?
Yeah, thank you, Council Member. First, I just wanted to close the loop on the offer for creative solutions around the lead testing. We certainly would want to engage in that conversation. And I think there's opportunity as the contractor that is supporting charter schools is also the contractor that is supporting DCPS. So I think that there is opportunity for us to find solutions there. With regard to the schools that relinquished their charters, first, I want to acknowledge that that is a difficult decision for any school leadership to come to, and I'm sure it was such for both of those schools. I would also say that both of them were in communication with My School DC around the time of them making that decision. And so there was some opportunity, although pretty close to the wire, there was some opportunity to navigate the lottery system appropriately, at least be aware of how to support those families. Specifically with respect to what PCSB is doing, we partner very closely with My School DC once we do know that a school has made that decision so that we can introduce our family engagement coordinators to be able to support families directly in addition to any effort that My School DC is having. And then we also want to work with them to sort of track where, how quickly families are getting enrolled, what decisions that they're making. It is a challenge when that is happening after the lottery system. It is a challenge, the timing of our review cycle and when we have data available for our review cycle is something that we are monitoring and working with OSSI and internally in our team to make sure that we can have information available to LEAs and for LEAs to have information to make decisions so that it is timely for families to engage in that lottery process. So we're hoping that there's opportunity in the future for it not to be post the lottery, but in situations like this is precisely what we talk about in terms of needing the resources to support closures. It's engaging family engagement coordinators. It's working with the existing school leadership to make sure that we, PCSB, as well as My School DC, has had a touch point with every family.
Okay. So on that, obviously the mayor/OSSI's budget formulation around enrollment projections included iDream and Hope. Would you agree that then we need to adjust the enrollment projections for the public charter school line?
Yes, and it will be adjusted by virtue of those dollars won't go out the door if those students are not there, meaning if those schools are not open, no money will go to those schools and the dollars will follow the students wherever they are enrolled. And so I don't think it's as simple as removing the projections from the schools. I think we need to see ultimately where those students land, because they are likely going to another charter school and possibly even a DCPS school. And by the way that the funding works is the first quarter payment will go out based on projected enrollment, but every other payment will be adjusted according to enrollment. And so I don't think it is a zeroing out.
I wasn't necessarily considering as a zeroing out in total, but it is entirely possible that some of those young people are going to end up at DCPS, which don't operate on the quarterly payment. And so I'm just sort of hedging in terms of what adjustments, if any, need to be made. Because, DCPS does have an enrollment reserve, but we just need better numbers, right, in terms of projections. So it's just not sitting there, and that DCPS never has an opportunity to see those funds because we don't do right size adjustments on their end is all I was sort of suggesting on that front. I appreciate your testimony around the Board of Trustees Training Amendment Act. When I was catching it a little bit, I think I heard you said you all would prefer a 1-year delay in implementation, or was it we can implement what we can currently, but for the full scope, we'd like a layered approach?
The latter. You and I have had conversations about the fiscal impact related to this training, also the timing of the implementation. We are actively working with OSSI and others to see if there's efficiencies to be found in sort of the design of the program. We're designing that now as we speak, and we can leverage a slower phased-in implementation of that. And it was more about delaying the full scope versus delaying any efforts at all this year.
Okay.
This coming year.
In terms of PCSB in general, did you all go through a reorg?
Recently?
Yeah, I mean, the budget books and the tables are reflecting new budget lines and activity codes that you all didn't have before. And so I'm wondering, that's what I was wondering, whether or not you all did some sort of reorg, and then to ask whether or not we can get a crosswalk.
I can't speak to why the budget book is represented that way. What I can say is that we every year have to align our budgeting with the city's sort of categories.
Okay.
I don't know why it looks different in the budget book, but I don't know if you have any perspective there.
Thanks for the question, and we can certainly follow up. We have representative from the OCFO that can support the communication about why that looks a little bit differently from this year than past years. They are responsible inevitably for representing what we share with them and how we work together. So they will be most equipped, and we can certainly follow up to ensure that is clear for you.
Okay, thank you so much. I had one other question, but it just left me. Sorry.
Well, don't go away, and I can let you have more questions.
What's that, Mr. Chairman? I didn't hear you.
Don't go away, and you can have more questions.
I do need to go away, but not because I don't love PCSB and others, but yes, I had it, and I literally thought, oh no, it came back to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about this additional payment for charter school teacher salaries, and what involvement in any, if any, have you all as an authorizer been in terms of an intermediary or in conversations with OSSI around the requirements for those funds?
Intermediary is probably not the appropriate term, but certainly we've been in conversation with OSSI about the desires of public charter schools, both to have equitable funding, but also for that not to be a burdensome activity to access the funds.
Yeah.
Last year, when there were different requirements, we were involved in making sure that LEAs were aware of those requirements and that they were submitting timely. But this year, it's been more of conversation and Dr. Mitchell and her team explaining their rationale and their thinking about how schools could access that funds. And we will certainly support in making sure that schools are aware that they should be doing their attestations to draw down the funds. But this is really OSSI's design, and we support the direction that they have come up with for schools to be able to access those dollars.
Okay, and then I'll direct those questions to Ossie. I will just say, of course, you know, one, I wish that this funding was built into the UPSFF, not just for charter schools, but also for DCPS teachers as well. But two, you know, if I'm dedicating this amount of money in terms of increasing teacher salaries, which is what we want to do, I need to assure that it's actually making it to those folks, right? And what is the layers of transparency that should we have an unfortunate bad actor that allows for the staff of a school to be able to, you know, pull the levers, you know, at Department of Employment Services and others if there is a wage theft complaint. So, you know, we don't have the same type of transparency into the salaries of charter school teachers in the same way that we do for DCPS and the Washington Teachers Union. And so this is something that just keeps coming up, but I feel like we need a better process overall, because this feels very piecemeal in a way that's not helpful or very predictable for the workforce.
It was a nodding of a head.
Agreed.
Okay. I can't see
I
the
don't know if
head,
you
so
can't see me. Sorry. Agreed.
all right. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other questions because you stole mine. So I will.
Well, don't go away, because I want to ask you a question about the cell phone bill. So there may be an amendment on Tuesday to amend the bill to require that there would be implementation of the citywide policy in January. My understanding
January
is that
2026?
yes.
Okay.
My understanding is that OSSI doesn't agree, the charter sector doesn't like it. I'm guessing that you, Dr. Walker Davis, don't like it. Can you explain why January is a problem?
Well, I do know that that many charter schools support implementing this in the 26-27 school year. I would say that January is likely a problem because people have not been planning for that. Many schools are already in the efforts of planning for the next school year. And so this would be mid next school year. That to me is the simplest challenge, but I know you've received testimony from charter schools themselves about the particular reasons at each charter school why this could be a problem.
Well, I'm sort of putting the question out there so that you, since you can't speak at a council meeting, this would be your opportunity to say why that's a bad idea. My sense is that most of the charter schools already have a cell phone policy. Is that correct?
Many do, yes, that is correct.
Many, not most?
I'm going to say many because I don't have the list in front of me, but many do, yes.
So it's not like there's no policy, that there's nothing going on. And my understanding is that OSSI, probably working with the charter sector, wants time to get feedback on a model policy.
That is my understanding, yes.
And that might take longer than between now and January.
That is my understanding, yes.
And then in addition, that schools don't particularly like having a policy suddenly imposed or changed mid-school year.
That is true. I would also say, if I understand the bill fully, there will be some cost associated with like storage of these items, depending on what schools are doing. Some schools are already storing cell phones, et cetera. But for those who are not, if they have to secure the cell phones, if they have to create other solutions for collecting these devices, I would imagine, because they are not expecting for that to be implemented as early, they have not been planning for that. And so there would be some unintended cost and implementation challenges. But again, there are schools who have this policy in place. There are schools who may already have solutions, and I would really need to engage in further conversations with them about what that complication would be.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson, do you have any follow-up on that?
I don't. I mean, sort of background for you, Mr. Chairman. I had thought about introducing a charter, or excuse me, a cell phone bill myself, and spoke with the Charter Alliance to get a census of what other charter schools were already doing. Dr. Walker Davis is accurate that a lot of charter schools already have some sort of policy, particularly in the middle grade arena. It looks different on the high school side, but there are not a lot of high school charters in the arena. So I, you know, I could see their issues with a mid-school year implementation. I was just always advocating for the beginning of school year 25-26.
All right, thank you. And before you leave, not that you have to stick around, but Dr. Walker Davis, I do want to talk to you about the fiscal impact on the board training
Yes.
in a couple of ways. One of them is that it seemed to me that the fiscal impact was a little bit excessive. $70,000 a year for training expenses. Yeah. Excuse me, and $75,000 a year for a learning management system. That sounds kind of healthy.
Thank you for the opportunity to further explain our fiscal impact statement, or our recommendation on what we think this would cost. To get back to how I responded to Councilmember Henderson, is full implementation of what we think is best practice around the governance training. So it would include dedicated staffing for implementation, it would include the learning management system, and it would include augmenting expertise for training, to lead the trainings. So with respect to the learning management system, we actually benchmarked that cost against OSSI's learning management system, and also BEGA's learning management system, which does house trainings for other governmental agencies. And the purpose of the learning management system would both be to deliver as well as to track participation in the training. I want to reiterate that there are over 700 volunteer board members. And so if the intent is that board members are to be trained annually, I would imagine that that's not going to be on everything, but we need a mechanism to be able to track those trainings and also to deliver them. So as I mentioned in my testimony, we are willing to work with OSSI to see if this could be augmented to their learning management system. That's probably the agency that makes the most sense. But if it cannot be augmented, we do need a way to collect that. That is not something that PCSB currently has. And so that is the intent behind that cost.
Well, how long does it take you to work with OSSI? Because
I've already spoken to Dr. Mitchell, and she is open to it. So it is really our staff trying to figure out how to make that work, what it would require. And I would be remiss in saying that I don't think it would be cost neutral to OSSI either to expand their learning management system, but it certainly wouldn't be the full cost of PCSB standing up a new learning management system.
Sure. Well, but we would like to have the fiscal impact statement revised before we vote on the bill.
Okay.
It's kind of reasonable. You brought somebody on staff recently to work with the PCS, with the charter boards. So why would you need an additional half a person?
The specialist that works right now on governance is doing the work to increase our current governance oversight, which includes monitoring board meetings, monitoring board meeting minutes, following up with other authorizers about the work they do, essentially developing our governance oversight plan, of which training is a part to support that work, but it is not the full work. If we are looking at someone who is going to actually monitor this training, implement the system, we will need augmented staff support for that. That is not work that this governance specialist that we have can do on their own, and also do all of the rest of the work that they're responsible for.
I'm not sure I'm following. I mean, is the training going to be, is the staff person going to be doing the training, or is the training going to be online, or a mix of the two?
We will likely do a mix of online, well, primarily online training, and there will be some opportunities for in-person. The staff member that we have on board is not going to be responsible for doing all the training, and there will be many areas that we're going to have to seek expertise beyond PCSB. So you could imagine that it will be PCSB, potentially even colleagues at OSSI talking about statewide accountability and training on those things. PCSB staff might be training on other areas of our oversight, but there are other parts of school governance that we would expect to contract with experts in that field to do. And we would also look at the training that LEAs are already providing and likely, approve certain types of training that are happening. Though that is not the responsibility of the governance specialist, that person is paying attention to our actual compliance and oversight for activities related to board governance. And we would need some kind of coordinating support. As I said in my testimony, I'm happy to find efficiencies to see if there are ways that we can do that, or even if we can find limited contract support to push the trainings, do the enrollment, all of those things. But that is not what our specialist is hired to do.
Well, I'm just thinking, the council, the entire council has to go through cybersecurity training a couple times a year. And we also go through ethics training. We go through a few. The cybersecurity is online. Took me 5 minutes. Maybe I was a little bit longer than other folks. So all that was just a module that I guess we had to buy, but it couldn't have been very expensive. And then everybody has to watch it. That could be a big part of the board training. That just doesn't strike me as costing $70,000. And then the ethics training is somebody from our general counsel. It's always the same person. Spends, I think, an hour, maybe 2 hours, 4 times a year, with everybody having to go online. It's done virtually. And he goes through, it's the same presentation every year. And I don't see how that costs $70,000, or how somebody who's working on board governance couldn't do that 4 times a year.
Chairman, I'm happy to discuss further the design of the governance training. Again, I want to reiterate that it is not one training module. It will probably be several, and it will be for 700 volunteer board members on an annual basis. I am committed to finding the most cost-efficient way to do that. We will likely have to rely very heavily on modules similar to what I have to take with BIGA and other folks. And so I'm not trying to neither minimize or glorify what it is that we're trying to design. I am trying to be realistic that, one, we do not currently have a learning management system. So unless we can augment it on OSSI's, we will need some way to track and deliver the training. And there will be additional activity necessary to coordinate. And so I will certainly lean on the resources that we currently have to do that, and try to design a training system that is aligned with best practices and that supports our overall governance oversight approach.
Well, you do understand that trying to find $250,000 a year is a barrier to this bill getting implemented.
Correct, which is one, why we asked for us to start a phased in approach with the resources that we have, and for the council to fund whatever we ultimately decide in fiscal year 27. I don't think that this is, we have to fund that full fiscal impact statement immediately, because I do think we can get some things off of the ground without those full costs now. And I'm happy to continue to talk to you or others about what that could look like.
So in other words, if we keep the implementation with the school year 26-27, that would actually modify the fiscal impact statement, because it wouldn't be the full cost.
Correct.
In FY26.
Correct.
And the training expenses, my recollection is that also includes training spaces. And that kind of blew me away because there's like the conference center over at the Berry Building or 41 4th Street that holds a lot of people.
As I said, I'm happy to find the most cost-effective way to implement. I do recall your interest in us doing as many in-person trainings as possible, but I don't think that that is actually possible with the number of board members that we have to train. And again, we will find free, cheap, whatever places if we do have to do in-person training.
Yeah.
I wanted to be realistic. Our team wanted to be realistic about just the cost of doing in-person trainings for large bodies of people.
Well, it seems to me that also there's different trainings. So
Yep.
a new board member would get something more intense or more comprehensive, I'll put it that way, than a returning board member. That is, I just had the
Correct.
training last year. I don't need to go through the full.
Correct.
You
That would be
agree?
our expectation. Yes. And I want to reiterate, while these roles are extremely important, these are also volunteers. So we want to make sure that the
Yeah.
training is meaningful, accessible, timely. But yes, we would not expect that people would go through every single module every single year.
I mean, I do think this training is important. That's the reason why I'm supportive of this legislation. We've had this conversation, but it's not like super complicated. It's like understand that the chief executive officer can't also be the chief financial officer. Understand that you've got to have some independence in evaluating financial reports. Understand that the board members have a right to stand up to the board chair and have a vote in the majority rules, and that the board can tell the CEO of the school what to do. Things like that.
Understood.
Also, the charters are independent. So you're going to look harder at this.
Correct. Yes.
And that means you'll follow up with us?
Correct. Yes.
So you are requiring more financial information. My note here says common financial support standards. Oh, is that for you or is that? Who gave me this question? You're requiring the schools or the LEAs to be more rigorous, I'll put it that way, in reporting financial information to you?
Yes. We are still requiring that schools submit their annual budgets. We talked about sort of the escalation that happens if we have concerns, including our financial monitoring list, our citation of fiscal
Yes.
concerns. So those are increased, well, consistent and increased tools that we're using for our financial oversight.
And I think all that's good. Are you aware of any schools that are having challenges with submitting financial information?
I will let our COO answer that question.
Thanks for the question. We have worked closely with all of our schools to get timely information. Certainly, there are times when the questions and scrutiny we provide, especially for schools that are presenting financial challenges, have struggled to get content to us timely. But over time and through working together in collaboration, we are able to get the content that we need to be able to provide appropriate oversight and understand the financial health of our LEA. So in general, while there are moments of time when it's challenging, in aggregate, it is not something that we struggle with.
Okay, I want to go back to lead pipes. So Councilmember Henderson mentioned that years past, the thought was DGS could do this for both sectors. Dr. Walker Davis, you look like, that could be interesting. What's the next step?
I am happy to talk to leaders at DGS about if this is something they are willing and can take on. As I mentioned, the contractor that supports both DCPS and charters, it's the same contractor. I am obviously not as familiar as the council member in sort of the history, but my understanding, it's not just that schools did not want DGS in the building. There is some complication in terms of the reimbursements and who's handling the contract, et cetera. So happy to talk to leaders there to figure out what is the most efficient way to get those services fulfilled. But if the next step is to engage with DGS, we're ready to have that conversation.
Well, I would say, yeah, but then again, the budget's with the council, so the council could do that as well. The impression I got from Councilmember Henderson, and I don't remember the history, is that the charter sector didn't like the idea of DGS doing it. So then that would suggest a conversation on your part with charter leaders.
Yes, we will also have that conversation. What I'm saying, where there is an opening is that the actual contractor is doing the
Yes, I understand.
implementation. It is not DGS. I don't know if that concern still remains in the charter community, so I would certainly have to have a conversation about that. But if it doesn't, and DGS being the overall contract administrator, will solve the problem. We're happy for that to happen. We understand that this is a mandate of the law. Our charter schools are complying and participating. The challenge is we haven't had stable funding for it. And specifically with respect to PCSB's budget, there has been a negative impact on our resources because we've been asked to cover those expenses when there is a dedicated line for those expenses to be covered
I
on the
understand.
DCPS side.
So I think I want to hear back from you, both as to the cost.
Yep.
But as also whether the charter sector would be okay if we were to put the funding in DGS with DGS expanding the contract.
Right. And yes, happy to engage in that conversation with charter leaders. And I would suspect that as long as that does not create any negative impacts on implementation on their end, that they would be open to that. So that I need to get a better picture of what those challenges are.
Okay. Let me ask you some questions about your budget. The mayor's proposed that your budget is going to be cut by 2.5 million. Are you okay with that?
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify our understanding of how our budget is represented. I believe that that represents a decrease in the budget authority associated with the funding that you found for St. Coletta and lead testing last year. So what we understand is our budget authority was increased to accommodate those back pass-throughs last year for St. Coletta and for lead testing. And because those are not funded, they're not included in our budget authority right now. So we understand that what is represented for PCSB reflects the projected enrollment for charter schools times our administrative fee, and not including monies to pass through for St. Coletta and lead testing. So not a cut, but a decrease in our budget authority because those are not obligations that are expected of us at this time. I don't know if there's anything you want to add there. Yep.
And your administrative fee is 0.75%?
We are allowed to charge 1% administrative fee. We have previously discounted that, and last year we charged 0.95. This year's administrative fee for FY26 will be the full 1%.
This year meaning FY26?
FY26, yes.
You said 0.95.
0.95, not
Why
0.95.
are you going up?
I will have our COO answer that.
Thanks for the question. The various investments for things like implementation of Aspire are just important in our investment in the sector. The improvements in our data quality that we want to utilize as we support our schools to take on Aspire and also abide by the various policies that we have in place, and we intend to strengthen and improve cost additional resources. We believe that the resources that we will have in conjunction with the various financial vulnerabilities that we are all experiencing these days will inevitably benefit the charter sector and our schools directly.
I will also add that it was becoming increasingly complicated to explain how our budget works, and a lot of misunderstanding about what we have access to versus what we were receiving in terms of revenue. And so I do think that that will help clarify what we're actually funded to do, and that we will have the resources necessary to beef up all of these areas of increased oversight that we've been engaged in conversation with the council.
But my understanding is that if we adopt the mayor's proposed budget, we'll only be giving you authority to spend 14 million. $14,019,673.
Correct. That reflects the projected enrollment for charters and times the 1% administrative fee.
Which is less than the actual in FY24, 14,100,000.
Again, it's based on the enrollment of our students. So whatever the projected enrollment is, that's what drives our, what is ultimately our budget authority.
One other question. Why is it, this might be for Mr. Henderson, why is it that the budget book says you don't have any full-time equivalent?
Thanks for the question. This is just an accounting thing because our DCPCSB's budget is funded completely through special purpose revenue. So all of it comes in as non-personnel. And then mid-year through the way, the OCFO leads us through a process of reprogramming that funding. This happens at a different point in the year, but typically mid-year at some point to identify what of those resources that we have are personnel funds, so that it gets trued up and re-accounted for appropriately by the end of the year. So it's because it's a special purpose revenue, the way that it enters.
Well, that may be the way it enters. And what I heard from you is that there's an internal reprogramming. And so ultimately, the city's financial records reflect that they're paying for people.
By the end of the year, that's correct.
And then they give us a budget book that says you have no people.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That is all accurate.
On that note, that made a lot of sense. Let me double check. Any questions? Anything I didn't ask you want me to ask?
Definitely not, but I will take this opportunity to thank you for having this hearing and for hearing directly from all of the LEAs that provided testimony. They can tell you exactly what the impact of this budget is going to have on their individual school communities. So I appreciate you making the time and dedicating the time to listening to their concerns.
Yes. Well, no, thank you. And thank you for not having any FTEs.
Thank you, Chair.
Or having FTEs.
I can assure you we have
We have
FTEs.
FTEs.
All right, that's going to conclude this hearing. This was the second of 6 hearings that we're having, or 7. Our next hearing will be on Wednesday, June 4th, where we'll hear testimony regarding the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. Next Friday, District of Columbia Public Schools, public witnesses only. June 11th, District of Columbia Public Schools, government witnesses. June 18th, the Committee of the Whole will have a hearing on all of the legislative measures. That's the Local Budget Act, the Budget Support Act, the FY25 supplemental, and so forth. I want to thank everyone again who testified. The time is 6:41 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned.